So this is the first in a series of video discussions about scatter architecture. Um, really, thinking of scatter architecture is what happens when winter comes, and that's a very subtle sort of thinking of, or maybe it's not so subtle, of have you planned for your divorce from your service provider, and whether that's cloud services or it's the supplier of your hardware and supplier of software. And sort of when you let's talk about Google Keep, which is the latest buzzword, and we're March 2013, and so the new thing from Google is Keep, which is a note-taking service capability, whether you call it a product, a service, but it's all tied into the Google Cloud, to the Google Docs, and Google offering a service that's going to draw you to use their site. And what they really want to do is to sell you advertising. They want to be able to, well, sell other people advertising and have you consume the advertising, to click on things and to go to sites. And that's their revenue model. Is they develop ICT capability, but they earn their revenue primarily off of advertising. So you start to think, okay, why do I mention Google Keep? Well, Google Keep comes just on the sort of heels of them announcing that one of their, for me, a long-term service that I used was a thing called Google Reader. And that allowed me to take RSS feeds from a number of different sites and to aggregate them together into groups, and then to consume these groups of feeds by topic. So of course I had one on enterprise architecture, another one on education, one on photography, and so, but of course the key isn't what I use Google Reader for, and it's just a blip along the sort of the road of the information highway, as it was called back in the late 90s. But it really, what it shows is that there's no commitment, long-term commitment, by any of these service providers to continue to provide their services on a long-term basis. And Google, it's not like it's, in the old days where if you had a type of server that you were using or operating system and the vendor decided to move off in a different direction, they tended to provide migration plans and services. In the case of Google, they're simply saying, RSS isn't really it anymore. We're focusing on other things, and in a couple of months, and July is the term, so they announced it in March, and same year, July, the service won't be provided anymore. We're no longer doing that anymore. We've given you reasonable notice, and it's up to you to figure out where to go. Now, in the case of RSS feeds and aggregators, it's going to spur off. There were already other providers. They, of course, didn't have as high a level of service or in terms of market share as Google did, and they're going to pick up the pieces, and things will carry along reasonably well. Now, the key, though, is for myself as a consumer of these services, I now have to go out and migrate my feeds, make sure everything's there, and there'll be certain things that aren't done quite the same way, but I'll get by. Life will carry on. Now, if you move that ahead to, or sort of align that to more, not myself as the enterprise, but a large organization as an enterprise, and have we planned for, on an architectural basis, how we are going to deal with 3 months worth of notice, and that's only if the organization doesn't go belly up and stop providing services entirely. But let's plan for an orderly migration from one service to another service, where it'll be slightly different in terms of capabilities and feature sets, but generally it'll be okay. And the concept behind scatter is that you plan in advance to scatter your functionality across, your business functionality needs across multiple service providers, and whether that's business services, application services, and if we use the cloud, the cloud paradigm, the software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, all of these as services, what are we going to do? What is our, our get well plan if one of them says, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you? My terms of service says all I have to do is give you notice. I don't have to provide you services anymore. I'll give you another one. It's sort of my internet service providers. I live out in the country, and where we are, pretty much the only thing I can get is, well, actually the only thing I can get is wireless internet. And I had a service provider and had a long-term relationship with them. We got into business together in 2001. I started using their service. I migrated to a commercial light service that they had. Life was good, and then they sold themselves to a large wireless provider. They didn't have the same level of service. They different SLAs. I had a 4-hour SLA, which was awesome, great for working from home. And so I stayed with the other guys as long as I could, and then one day things stopped working because they disconnected the tower. Switched over to another service provider. Now, I already had a backup at that point in time, and I had 2 service providers. I had another guy who was doing the lake beside me, and I was okay, but I did had to get my other one back up. And so I went with another service provider. Quite good, licensed spectrum. I was really happy until they got bought by, believe it or not, the same guys who bought the first guys. Things were okay, but I knew change was going to come, and what wound up happening is the new guys put new equipment on one of their towers, which had conflicts for certain people, and one day my internet just stopped working. Checked the contract. I had to sign a 3-year contract with them, and in terms of their contract was they just could decide to tell me they weren't providing services anymore, and I just could stop paying them and not get service anymore. Now, I had a plan B, but I hadn't activated it yet. I had thought about it. I'd done some research in it. Anyways, within 24 hours, I was back up again. But my point is that nothing lasts forever in today's day and age. There's no long-term, I want you to be my customer for the next 5, 10, 15 years. It's really a mentality, the half-life of ICT is a fiscal year. Start off fiscal year planning. Oh, this isn't making us enough money. It's not in our strategic directions. It's not the way that we want to go. And what winds up happening is the service provider decides to stop providing those services. It's not strategic to us anymore. Whether it was strategic to our customers or not really doesn't matter. It's not strategic to us. So, scatter. It's an architectural approach to deal with the realities of today's short life of ICT. And that's the blip. I actually talked for about 7 minutes, and we'll talk to you presumably by this medium, or maybe I'll get my fingers going on the keyboard and type something up. But on a Saturday morning, sunny winter day outside, I decided to spend a little period of time, check my notes here. I covered off pretty much everything I wanted to do, and talk to you later. Bye.